To You at the Altar by Rebecca Thorne. This is the third book in the Tea and Tome series. Do I remember everything that happened in the first two books? No, I do not. Did I like the vibes anyway? I did. This is a cozy fantasy series set in a fantasy land where the most powerful mage of the realm marries, in this book, spoilers, not really, marries a former queen's guard. They run off together to start a bookshop in this quaint little town. It's a tea shop slash bookshop. But you probably know that because this is the third book in the series. I don't know why you're watching this video if you're not familiar with the series. So the vague plot of this book is that it's their wedding is coming up in like a week, and there's political turmoil. The queen of Rhaena's homeland is sort of an evil queen. There's a coup stirring that Kianthe and Rhaena are helping fester. And they expect for this coup to take place at the wedding. There's other stuff going on. There's sort of a lot going on. There's a lot of like little subplots and side characters doing their thing. I guess there's not really that many subplots. You got the wedding, and you got the queen thing, and that's mostly it. And everything really ties around the queen being dethroned. So the queen has a illegitimate half-sister who would also have claim to the throne, and so they're trying to locate this woman and get her to accept the throne. I will get into spoilers just because I don't know why you're watching this video if you haven't read it, and also because I need to tell myself what happens. I will be rewatching this video when the fourth and final book comes out so that I can actually remember what happened here vaguely. I'm not gonna tell you all the spoilers, I'm not gonna get into everything, but they end up finding this half-sister and trying to convince her to overthrow the queen. She doesn't want to. She just doesn't have really any interest in being a queen and ruling the realm. Which leads to a really cool piece of character development, or like character arc, I should say, for Rhaena. Everyone agrees that she should be the next queen. There's talk of just completely destroying the monarchy system anyway, so why not get rid of the monarchy line and just elect someone competent, and then also set up like a democratic sort of parliament, and just completely change the system. And Rhaena steps into that role, and she, by the end of the book, becomes queen. Which is very cool. And it made a lot of sense, but I'd never thought about it. Her as a queen's guard, technically committing treason by leaving the queen to go off on her own, but still feeling this sort of attachment to her homeland, and even to the crown in a way. But she just doesn't like this queen, and she realizes her oath wasn't to the crown, it was to the kingdom as a whole. And that is what makes her such a great queen. And she's great with people. Obviously this is a cozy fantasy, so she's good with people, and they live in this quaint little town that they've sort of revitalized the economy of, and they know all their neighbors, and everyone gets along, and everyone trusts Rhaena. They don't really like the queendom that much because the queen's evil, but they like Rhaena, and so when she assumes this role, then everyone loves the queendom again, and the two nations get along. Isn't that grand? This does have good cozy vibes. I think some of the cozy scenes are like, they're like the most well written. Like you could tell that's what the author like wanted to indulge in, because that's sort of the point of the genre. There's a really cute like bachelorette party scene where they're just playing Monopoly, except it's not Monopoly, it's Cocoa and capitalism, which is funny. One of my favorite little character arcs was the griffin Ponder. In the first book, she's just an egg. They have this griffin egg. In the second book, she's a baby griffin. And in this third book, she becomes a sort of an older sister. There's all these baby dragons flying around, and she's like corralling them because they sort of harass the town, but not in an evil way. They're just like very curious, and they'll go bother children and poke their nose into business where they don't belong, and they'll land on buildings and scare people, but not intentionally. So they're very cute. The animals in this book are quite well written. I feel like I noticed that for a lot of books, where people just love writing animals. They get really into it. I guess just because we love animals, and we like really want to capture the essence of like a cat. If you read any book, even like a mediocre book, if a cat shows up suddenly, there's this beautiful paragraph about the cat's personality and his gorgeous fur, and people really like writing about animals, and I think that brings the animal scenes to life, especially in this book. This isn't To You at the Altar. This is just the first book in the series, but I read this on audiobook. I didn't have a physical copy, but I just had this out for reference, for vibes. So I really liked the Griffin's arc. You see a lot of arcs for a lot of like the side characters. One of the arcs I'm most invested in is the two Diarns who are enemies but clearly have a thing for each other but don't admit it yet, and they still haven't admitted it in this book, so I'm sure the payoff in the fourth book will be very good. But like you see them like sometimes hanging out. It's just like a really small side plot. You'll get a few lines about that where when they're both in a scene. I did have trouble remembering the plot of the first two books. The book tries to help you remember things, but it wasn't helpful to me. It would be like, here's Mathilde, the town midwife, and I'm like, yeah, I remembered that. It's like, here's Gosley, the teenage shop assistant. I'm like, yeah, I remember who that is. I remembered the characters. I didn't remember the plot, but it came back to me over the course of reading this. Like there was the plot about the dragon eggs in the second book. And then obviously they rescued the dragon eggs, and then there's baby dragons in this book, which is, the dragons are really cute. A big part of the second book is like a secondary romance between these other two women, Serena and Bobby. That's their names. They're in this book, but not very much. They sort of get tasked with doing a side quest over there that the main characters don't have the time or resources to complete right now because they're doing other things. So those two get pushed away. They do get their storyline. They're in an argument and then they make up and reconcile, blah blah blah. I was fine with not seeing much of them because I basically forgot they existed from the second book, honestly. They weren't my favorite couple. Again, I was more interested in the Diarns than in like the main couple of the second book. Or not the main couple, but the main secondary couple. The second most important couple aside from Reyna and Chianthe. I like that this book was back mainly focused on Reyna and Chianthe. And I believe the fourth book will be too, because they're on the cover of the fourth book. Whereas it's either Serena or Bobby on the cover of the second book, I don't know. So we're back with our original main characters, that's great. This is just random, this is just me. You see them on the cover, these two ladies. This white-haired one is Reyna the Queen's Guard, which you can tell because she has a little sword. And then just this dark-haired lady is Chianthe, who's the Mage of Ages, the Arcandor. But I don't know why I just, even when I look at this, I'm like, clearly that's a mage. I know she has a sword, but like, this is a mage with like bright white hair, and obviously she does magic. And she's like the most powerful mage. And this is just some lady who's just like a random Queen's Guard who was just not born into royalty, wasn't destined to amount to anything really. It's just like some lady who is just supposed to be just one of the guards. I feel like they should have been reversed, their character designs. But that's me, who cares? I do like Reyna on the cover of this book, where she's like at the altar and she's got a cool sword and she's wearing like a suit jacket. She looks badass as hell. But she also looks like a mage because she has bright white hair, and that just says magic to me, I don't know why. But the little characters on this cover are cute. I also like that Reyna becomes queen because she has a very queenly name, Reyna, who reigns. I don't think that pun was in this book, but it should have been. I'm sure it will be in the fourth book. This book has a lot of puns. I like puns. Even this was like too much for me. This was like overindulgent. She really crammed in a bunch of puns. One of the characters, is it Reyna or is it Chianthe? I don't even remember now. One of them does a lot of puns. And that it's spread like an infection where everyone does all these puns because they're around this woman who does puns. I was a little disenchanted with that, but I did like a lot of the cozy, cute moments and those little details like that, the little bits of character work. There are some funny jokes. And I do think the character work is quite good. Because again, like, I remembered all of these characters. There's a lot of characters, especially, like, with every book we get a whole new cast of side characters, and then they all show up in the next books, and this is the same, like, we're introduced to a few new characters in this. But they're all pretty memorable, and they all get, like little queer romances in the background. There's a couple of non-binary people, there's, like, two gay guys in this one. The queen's illegitimate sister, she's Arrow Ace, or just Ace, I don't know, but she's Ace. So you get some cool new characters, some new representation, good vibes. I like them all. Some are a little more memorable than others, but I'm sure some, like, won't really be that important in the next book, if they're there at all. A couple will be. This did include a preview of the first chapter of the next book that I didn't read or listen to. I listened to this on audiobook, but just because I didn't want spoilers. I don't love this audiobook narrator. Like, 95% of the times, even like 98% of the time, she's perfectly fine. I don't want to criticize her. She'll do this thing where it's like, Kiente laughed, and then the narrator will laugh. She slurped her tea. We didn't need to do both of those things. You just pick one, and preferably just read it. So she was doing a little extra, but, like, it's fine 98% of the time. I read the first one, obviously, and then I listened to these next two. I did prefer reading it, maybe, but it was just easier to get it on audiobook from my library, so it was fine. It was mostly good. She also does some accents, and I think the well, I was gonna say the accents should have been switched. Rhaena the Queen's Guard is, like, proper British, and then Kiente is just, like, American. I don't know. I guess it makes sense for, like, the queendom citizen to have, like, a British accent. But I don't know. I always think of, like, the Arcandor ruling, like, her own sort of peoples and realms and whatnot. Like, that's like royalty, so that should be, like, British. But I guess it's fine. But the Arcandor has a friend who she grew up with in this book, and he comes to visit, and he is a Southern gentleman. I mean, I guess that's also American. They're not in America. This is, like, a second world fantasy. It's not, like, a real place, but everyone has, like, different accents. It is distinguishable. It does help distinguish the characters, but I'm like, now why is that man a Southern gentleman when he grew up right next to just the regular American girl? Sure. I mean, I guess people living in America in the same place can have different accents. I don't know. Whatever. Not that big a deal. Just a quirk with the audiobook that I'd mentioned for me. This review is kind of all over the place, but it was good. I got into it. I was lost in the beginning, but then I got into it. I remembered enough. And it's not super high stakes series, right? It's a cozy fantasy. So, like, you can kind of just vibe with it and pick it up as you go along. I wouldn't recommend, like, jumping into the series on book 3. I don't know why you'd do that. You should definitely start at the beginning, but I don't know, you don't need, like, a full recap getting into this. You won't be that lost if you haven't read it yet. There are some good action moments, though. Like, the climax is quite nice. I think Rebecca Thorne actually does write good action sequences as well. Like, her best moments are, like, these super cute moments where they're just, like, playing a board game and getting really into it, or where the griffins are being really cute and pestering the dragon. But she also writes, like, good action moments, like when they dethrone the queen. So you get, like, a good range. It's not super high stakes dramatic, and, like, you know it's going to have a happy ending. And even then, like, when they dethrone the king, like, I thought they were gonna kill her, right? Like, in another fantasy novel, you just kill that lady, take her throne. But they don't. They just, like, exile her to the pirate islands so she can lead a nice mediocre life, which she will hate, but which would be just a perfectly normal life to anyone else. And they even talk about that, and it's like, why are we letting her off again? It's like, because we're the good guys. So, you know, it's like a cute, cozy, just a cozy read. But there's some good action. There's some stakes. It's a good mix. I thought there were some good reveals here. Like it surprised me that Rhaena was going to be queen, but I liked it. It surprised me that the sister didn't want to be queen, but I liked it. And then there's a twist at the end. This is a spoiler, a little detail spoiler that maybe you don't want if you haven't read it yet. Kianthe and Rhaena have already gotten married before the book even starts. This is really just a presentational wedding. They had their own little private ceremony last season, whenever that is. And now they're having like a big ceremony for the town and for Kianthe's parents. And the queen comes and everyone comes and it's this big public deal. But you find out they're already married, which I thought was really good because I noticed throughout the book that they were already calling each other my wife. And I'm like, you're not wives yet, but they actually were wives the whole time. So there's little breadcrumbs that lead up to that reveal in a really cute way. I liked that. Very satisfying. Good attention to detail. It's a good book. Pretty good. I gave it 4 stars. I wasn't like in love with it. I was a little lost in the beginning, but that's on me. But I had fun reading it. I got into it. I will read the 4th book. It comes out later this year. I'll watch this video before that so I remember things. But yeah, I liked it. Good series. I do recommend it if you're into cozy fantasy. But I do think it's about ready to be over. I don't think you could drag this on for a million more books. I don't even know what's happening in the 4th book. I haven't read the description. Again, I don't like spoilers. I didn't read the preview. I'm just gonna go into it blind and, you know, waddle my way through all the names and the plot things that I don't remember. And just hope for the best. Just vibe.